After photographing thousands of people, today I'm sharing the knowledge that you need to increase your chances of taking great portraits. My goal for this class is to equip each and every one of you watching right now with a foundational understanding that you can use right away and get the kind of images that you have dreamed of taking. Welcome to Kando Everywhere. My name is Miguel Quiles. I'm proud and honored to be a part of Sony's Artisan of Imagery program. Before we get started with today's class, I want to take a moment to thank Sony for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this amazing event. And most of all, I want to thank each and every one of you out there as well for watching. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into a subject that I call portrait psychology. Now, I'm not a doctor, nor do I have a degree in psychology or anything like that, but don't tune out just yet, because what I do have is real world experience photographing thousands of people of every shape, size, gender, age, religion, you name it. I've had my successes, I've had my failures, but most of all, I've developed a structured approach that has allowed me to grow my brand and my business year over year. These are just a sample of the many images that I photographed over the course of my 8 years working as a professional portrait photographer. And along the way, I've learned some valuable lessons that I'm going to share with you today. My hope is that these lessons will help you avoid some of the mistakes that I and many other photographers have made in their journey. To get started, I want to read you a quote by Erica O'Rourke. She has an interesting perspective that I think most portrait photographers don't consider. Erica says, "People spot a big black lens and they worry about what they're doing or how their hair looks. Nobody sees the person holding the camera." I find this quote kind of fascinating. From the perspective of a portrait photographer, we're often worried about the technical things. Things like, what settings do I need to use in this situation? Or what kind of poses should I get with them? Or where should I put my lights? These are just some of the things that go through my mind, at least during a portrait session. Maybe some of you out there can relate. We're so worried about our own performance, the results that we can produce with whatever gear it is that we own. And oftentimes we pay little to no attention to the person that's in front of us that's being photographed, that, feels and how they think about the process. Abraham Lincoln once said that there are no bad pictures. That's just how your face looks sometimes. It's pretty funny, but I think this quote really encapsulates what most photographers feel about their role in getting people to look their best in a photograph. If at the end of a session, a person doesn't end up liking their photos, it's never our fault. That's just how their face looks, right? But the reality is that we have tremendous influence over the results that we can get. And it really has little to do with the lenses that were used or any other gear related thing. I see this kind of thing among novice photographers that I've mentored over the years, that great results are just out of reach. If they only could buy that lens or that full frame camera or that pro light that they see their portrait heroes using, they could get similar results. While getting better equipment over time can help you to improve the quality of your work, I believe the biggest leap forward that you can make is to upgrade yourself. Equipping yourself with a basic understanding of the psychology that goes into taking and making a great portrait will pay off for years to come, and it'll make your future gear upgrades that much more valuable. This is why I believe the biggest upgrade we can make as photographers is to our soft skills. The job website Indeed.com defines soft skills as personality traits and behaviors. Unlike technical skills or hard skills, soft skills are not about the knowledge you possess, but rather the behaviors that you display in different situations. They go on to list a variety of different soft skills like integrity, dependability, effective communication, open-mindedness, teamwork, creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, adaptability, organization, willingness to learn, and empathy. Soft skills are the personal habits and traits that shape how you work on your own and with others. You see, your behavior, both real and perceived, will impact your images in a very real way. Let's take a look at some of these soft skills and break them down a bit. The one that I think that might be the most important and impactful one is empathy. I like to define my terms as I go just to make sure that we're all on the same page. But empathy is defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Now, I think our culture in recent years has changed a lot, where people are far more comfortable taking their own photographs. But believe it or not, there are actually a lot of people out there who experience fear and anxiety and even phobias about being photographed. Did you know that a phobia of having your picture taken actually exists? I actually had a person I photographed years ago tell me that they had this condition called, I think it was like scopophobia. That's how you pronounce it. I had to actually excuse myself to Google what the word meant. And I was pretty shocked to see that it was actually a real thing. I mean, how would you react if you were hired by a company to photograph their executives and one of them told you that they were battling this phobia? Do you laugh it off and just tell them to grow up? Do you go back to your client and tell them that you didn't get the shot that they needed for their website or project because that person was scared? This is where your ability to show empathy will make the difference between getting the shot or not, and them having a great experience or a bad one. If we put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're photographing, we can come up with solutions that will make people show us their best, their most interesting, their most creative side while being photographed. For the next few minutes, I want us all to practice empathy and put ourselves into the shoes of someone being photographed, just so we can uncover the things that cause anxiety before, during, and after a portrait session. Generally speaking, the things that cause anxiety around getting a photo taken fall into 4 possible categories. They are life stressors, lack of rapport, lack of trust, and environmental factors. Let's address these one at a time and start off with life stressors. People can have anxiety around all sorts of life-related things that can affect a portrait shoot. Maybe they're having a difficult time at work. Maybe they're overwhelmed with school demands. Perhaps they are having financial issues or a medical situation that's weighing on them heavily. I probably don't have to tell you this, but life is tough. We all go through things at, some point or another. And when someone brings all of this heaviness to a photo shoot, it's on us to direct or to redirect this and make it into something that gives everyone a positive result. In situations like this, where I'm about to photograph someone who is displaying this kind of anxiety, here's my advice. Take the time to let the person talk and share how they're feeling. Hear them out without giving any kind of advice or anything. Once they're done expressing themselves and how they feel, start working to assure them that the photo shoot that you're about to have is going to be an escape from all of that. More importantly, that even though they might be going through whatever it is that they're going through, that you're going to get great photos no matter what. Period. End of story, right? People need to have the reassurance that even though things might not be going great, that you're going to get the job done with professionalism and with skill. Moving on, another source of anxiety can stem from a person having a lack of rapport. I've seen many photographers act like robots going through, the paces of their job, and through that, they're failing to build rapport. Once again, the job website, Indeed.com, has 10 tips that are great at helping you build rapport with others. I'm going to cover 8 of those tips that I think are the most relevant to what we do as photographers. The first tip is to be friendly but genuine. Many photographers that I've talked to are introverts by nature. And because of that, sometimes the social awkwardness that comes from that can be seen by someone who is anxious as being unfriendly. Being friendly doesn't have to be this complex thing. Oftentimes a simple smile as you greet someone, or maybe even doing it as you type or send a text message, can make all the difference. You're about to spend some time photographing them, so you might as well be friendly and try to set them at ease. The second tip is to ask questions about the person's work, life, or interests. This is an easy icebreaker that can open the line of communication with them and maybe even give you some insight into what makes them tick. Who knows, maybe you share common interests or experiences that you're able to connect on a new level. I promise you, if you see a photo taken by a person who connected with their subject versus someone who just walked up and snapped a photo, you're going to be able to tell the difference in that final image. More importantly, the positive experience they'll have with you could lead to word of mouth referrals, which are so powerful in growing as a photographer. The third and fourth tip kind of go together, and that is to remember details from your conversation, especially their name, and to build on previous conversation with follow-up questions. Now, I'm gonna be honest and upfront with you right now. This is something that I still struggle with. You know, anyone else out there have a hard time remembering names? I mean, I can remember faces and numbers and all sorts of other details, but a person's name, it usually escapes me, and it's usually when I need to figure it out the most. The best and most simple advice that I ever got in regards to this is to try and write things down whenever possible. When someone tells you their name, repeat it back to them early and repeat it often. Hi, Sarah, it's so great to work with you today. Okay, Sarah, here's what I had in mind for your images today. Sarah, that is such a cool outfit you picked. Sarah, 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 right? Repeating back what you hear, including using their name throughout the conversation with them and asking them clarifying questions, all of this is going to help you to build rapport. The fifth tip is to make sure you answer questions about yourself. You know, introverts are often shrouded in mystery, mainly because they don't like to talk about themselves. If you're asked any questions, be sure to promote conversation and dialogue. Just be careful to, stay away from controversial topics. The last thing that you want to have that ruins your photo shoot is that you tell them that you're an Android lover and they love iPhone, right? Tip number 6 is to find a balance between questions, statements, and taking turns speaking. Conversing with someone is a two-way street. You're not going to build rapport with someone if all you're doing is asking a million questions, or you're taking over the conversation and not letting them respond. It could be hard at first, but you have to be aware of the situation and identify if you're having a good conversation that's, going back and forth in a genuine way, or if you're dominating things. I think having an awareness of this will help you to be mindful as you're talking to them and help you build rapport moment by moment. Tip number 7 is to use open, welcoming body language. Again, a simple smile while you're talking to someone, making sure to give them their personal space. Don't talk with your arms crossed. Don't roll your eyes if they say something that you don't like or agree with. Nonverbal communication is one of those things that's a silent killer in portraiture. Sometimes people read a photographer's posture or expressions as being that of a person who doesn't care or has some other negativity that's tied to it. And trust me, that will show up in the photos that you take of that person. If they feel you're expressing some sort of negative body language, it's going to undermine everything else that you're trying to do. So again, just another thing to be aware of. The last tip for building rapport is to be respectful of their time. Creative people are notorious for being late and for falling behind on deadlines. I mean, that's me included, right? If you've scheduled someone to shoot for an hour, make sure that you make it happen within the time frame that you promised. If you say that you're going to deliver images to them on a certain day, do that, right? Or deliver it even earlier if you can. When it comes to appointments, I live by the motto that if you're not at least 15 minutes early, you're late. Oftentimes I head to my studio or wherever it is that I'm going to be shooting an hour or so ahead of time just to make sure that I'm there before anyone shows up. Nowadays, people are busier than ever, so you don't want to ruin the rapport that you've built by not being respectful of the time they've given you. Moving right along, another thing that causes anxiety is a lack of trust. If a person doesn't trust that you know what you're doing, you're probably not going to get good photos of them. In order to build trust, you really have to take a holistic approach. Building trust starts with your branding, things like your website, your social media pages, your business cards, any external things that a person would see or interact with before working with you. As a photographer, you really need to curate all of these things to make sure that they're helping you out in your goals of building trust with people. Building trust comes down to your communication, how you present yourself, your professionalism overall. I've noticed that as I've built trust with people I work with, they're often more relaxed and willing to give me their best expressions and poses early on. That trust is what gives them the freedom to be all that they can be, and it gives me the opportunity of capturing that in a photo. There are also environmental factors that can cause anxiety. I remember when I first started out, I used to work out of my home studio, which was basically my living room with all of the furniture and stuff moved out of the way. And a client was coming by who was allergic to dogs, which wouldn't have been a problem except for one small detail. I have 3 dogs. So after being told that this was going to be an issue, I immediately got into problem solving mode. And lucky for me, I found an outdoor location nearby that worked perfectly for us, to get all the shots that we needed. This is just one example, but there are some other things that you want to consider in regards to your environment. Is the place safe? Does it smell pleasant? How about music? Are you playing death metal or some kind of aggressive or maybe even inappropriate music in the background? If you're shooting at your place, is everything clean and organized? You might not think that these things are all that important, but trust me when I say that if any of these things stand out to them and cause them to be anxious about your time with them, your photos probably won't turn out that good, and we definitely don't want that. All of these things are within your control. That's the good news in all of this. A bit of awareness and effort on your part will go a long way in helping you to capture great photos. With these tips in mind, I want to take you behind the scenes of one of my portrait sessions to give you an idea of what all of this could look like in practice. Welcome everyone to my studio. And so I'm here about an hour early. And like I was telling you guys before, highly recommend that you get to wherever it is that you're going to shoot early. And it's because of this. Usually I have like a pre-game ritual, right? Or a pre-shoot ritual. And I do these things because I want to make sure that my mind is right, that I'm comfortable, that I'm prepared. And so what do? So I get here about an hour early and I'm thinking through, I look at the mood board that I sent to the client to make sure that, for example, my backgrounds, are they set up? Are they ready? Are my lights set up and ready? Check my cameras and I think through, what lenses do I plan on using? Do I have those lenses here ready for me to use? Or did I forget one at home? Do I need to make any contingency plans? All of this stuff I want to do ahead of the photo shoot before the person actually gets here, because maybe I can go and get it if it's something that I left at home. So you want to prepare ahead of time and get your mind right. And this is a really big part of the pregame ritual. So she'll be here in about an hour. So what I'm going to do is just double check my equipment, check my backgrounds, check the space just to make sure that everything is clean, that it's sanitary, that there's, just everything is ready to go and that it's not setting off any alarms that are going to mess up the photo shoot. So with that being said, she'll be here in an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and start setting up and take you guys along. All right, so I'm here in the space that I'm planning on shooting. In my studio, I have kind of a daylight area that I plan on using to take these portraits today. So first and foremost, like I was talking about before, I like to check my equipment to make sure that everything is set up properly, that my battery is charged up. I'm planning on using my A7R4 for this portrait session and using my 85mm f1.8 lens. I use this probably the most often for most of my portrait sessions because it's a really sharp combination. So what I'll end up doing is making sure, for example, like I'm shooting in RAW, making sure that my picture profiles that I would like to shoot with are correct. And if at all possible, usually I'll have an assistant here or I'll have somebody shooting behind the scenes video. And my preference is to use them as kind of like a test subject to make sure that my lighting is proper, if there's anything that I need to use to get the right exposure and things like that, like a V-flat, for example, that I have those things handy and we kind of get a general idea of what the pictures are going to look like. So for these shots, I'm going to be using the available light coming through the window. The sun is peeking out, which is great. I'm going to use a canvas background for these shots, and for the most part everything is looking good. We got everything all set up, we hung up our backdrop, and yeah, it's just a matter of just waiting for our client to get here so that we can start shooting. All right, so I just saw Brianna pull up and she's gonna be walking in here any second. So of course with this whole COVID-19 stuff that we're currently finding ourselves in, masks are very important. So I'm gonna wear my mask. I always temperature check people over the last few weeks as we've started to reopen, just to make sure that they're not running a fever or anything like that. And again, this is for me, for my safety, and also to kind of put them at ease that I am, following guidelines and also making sure that I'm protecting them as well. So we'll get masked up here. She'll be walking in a moment here. And okay, see her here. And looks like she's getting her mask put on. So come on in. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. We'll do air high fives with this whole, yeah. Come on in, Lex, let me check you out here. Good, cool. Awesome, welcome. Welcome. How is everything?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, I know you're probably gonna need a few minutes to kind of get yourself situated. So in the very back, I've got like a little makeup area. There's products and stuff there if you need anything to get ready. And in the meantime, I'm just going to set my stuff up and let me know however long it is that you need to get ready. Let me know, and I'll just be kind of piddling around getting stuff ready on my end. And we'll get started probably in about 15 minutes if that's cool with you. So
sounds good.
Cool. All right, let's get started. All right, so like I told you guys before, we were going to be using our daylight studio, and she's ready to go, and I'm ready to go. I've tested everything, and so Brianna, come on back. All right, so what I want you to do, I'm going to try a couple of different things here because we actually have a bit of a different situation with the lighting. It's constantly changing here, but you're in the shade. This is perfect. I'm going to have you take a little step this way, and I'm going to bring in this B flat. Basically, this is just to bounce a little bit of light on you. So if you get roasty and toasty, let me know. I'll give you a break as you need it. And take me a second here to get my settings dialed in. So let's see, right now, all right, so I'm at 1.8, 3/20th of a second, ISO 100, getting a pretty decent exposure. So I'm gonna play around with my angles here for a minute. So usually the first few shots that I take, I'm kind of like testing my exposure, checking my angles to see if this is the kind of lighting that I want. So you don't have to worry about giving me like your most amazing expressions just yet, because got to get the lighting and stuff just right.
Right.
The other thing too, like I'm very much a stickler for my lighting. So like I always end up when I'm photographing somebody, I'm kind of looking to see how the light is falling on their face. And if it doesn't look good, as far as the light that's coming in, then I have to make it look good. So right now, like what I'm seeing is, I don't know that I actually want to use this canvas because I'm lighting half of your face. So what I want you to do is kind of rotate and follow me. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, so from here, we're getting some light that looks a little bit better. This actually looks decent. So here's what we're gonna do. I think instead of using the canvas background, what I'm gonna do is use this white background and actually just kind of use this daylight that's coming in. So I like to explain things even though like they may not know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of it is photographer speak, but I'm saying it because I want them to know that like I have everything under control. Like I want them to look their best. And oftentimes what photographers will do is they'll just like sit and they'll start shooting and they have no idea what's going on, what I'm doing. And so I like to kind of give them some insight. And really the goal is that I don't want her to be in her own head. Right? If I'm constantly talking to her and kind of telling her what I'm doing, she's not thinking about, for example, if she had a bad night last night, she's not like, oh man, I'm so tired, or maybe she didn't eat before the photo shoot. I don't know. I don't want her to think about those things. I want her to be in the moment. I want her to be focused on getting her picture taken and giving her best to the camera. So I drown out that internal dialogue that may not be positive with random ramblings of a mad photographer. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of change my angles here and we'll keep shooting. All right, so what I'm going to do instead is I really love how this light looks as it's coming in directly and just kind of flat lighting to some extent. See a little bit of shadow on this side of the face, which really like accentuates your jawline. And the eyes are popping right now. It looks amazing. So this is going to be good. This is what we want here. So I'm changing my settings up a little bit. I'm at f1.8, 1/400th of a second, ISO 100. Very nice. If you hear the my shutter going off like crazy, I tend to shoot in a continuous drive mode when I'm shooting in available light for a few different reasons. Usually I'm pretty steady with holding the camera when I'm shooting, but there are times where, you know, I might move a little bit, she may move a little bit. So when you're shooting with an 85mm lens, you want your shutter speed to be at least double that focal length. So I have an 85, so you would want to be at like 170 as far as your shutter speed, but of course there isn't 170. So right now I'm at 1/400, and the main reason is to minimize that camera shake. I want to make sure my shots are really sharp. Looking at the viewfinder and looking at the exposure, it looks great. So yeah, I'm really just trying to look at that to make sure that I get the sharpest possible image that I can get. So very good. And with the continuous drive mode, it basically ensures that sometimes I might move, she might move, but if I'm shooting them 1, 2, 3 shots at a time, one of those shots is going to come out sharp, right? Even if I move a little bit or she moves a little bit, I'm trying to increase the statistics, right? I'm trying to stack the odds in my favor a little bit of getting that perfect shot. So even if I mistime it and she blinks, I could still make sure that I get a beautiful shot. Very nice. Looks awesome. Oh, you're gonna love these shots. This looks so cool. It's another thing that you're gonna notice as I'm shooting. I talk a lot, and I talk a lot at the person, telling them that they're doing a good job. The goal during a photo shoot is to really keep everything very upbeat, keep the energy levels really high. What you don't want to happen, or what you don't want to happen, is that you're doing a photo shoot and it's quiet, right? Ideally, if this wasn't a video, I would have music playing in the background, but obviously for copyright reasons, I don't want to play music in the background. So, you know, I'd usually have music playing in the background that would be her choice in this case. Like, I don't want to play, you know, polka music or something where she's just like, what is it with this guy? I want to play music that she likes, something that's enjoyable for her. In this case, you're playing the music in your head because we can't play music, unfortunately. But you're doing a great job nonetheless. Very good. Perfect. And I love the fact that with this camera, when you have the electronic viewfinder and you're dialing in your settings, you can actually see what the exposure is going to look like. So you'll notice that as I'm shooting, this is another thing that's like a psychological thing that she may not notice, she may notice, I don't know. But a lot of times when a photographer is using a DSLR, it's very common for them to be shooting and they'll do one of these numbers. They'll take the photo, they play back the photo, right? And you're looking at the photo. Of course, it's a little easier when you're wearing a mask because she can't see my face all the way, but oftentimes what photographers will do is they'll take the picture and they'll start staring at the camera and they make all these like very funny faces. She sees that, right, as the subject, and I'm sure if you see me with my face kind of like, you know, you might be thinking like, oh, there's something wrong, you know, whatever. So you want to be aware of that as well. The fact that even though you may not realize it, they're watching you, and the expressions that you have on your face, they do matter. You do want to make sure that you're not making funny faces as you're reviewing photos, but you'll notice that as I'm shooting, I don't even have to look at the viewfinder because I have that 2-second preview. So it shows me the picture that I just took 2 seconds prior, so that I can make sure that the exposure looks good. You know, if it doesn't look good, I can make those adjustments with the camera up to my face. I don't have to constantly chimp to see what that exposure is. So take a few more photos. I usually like to overshoot just a little bit. I got the shot that I wanted, but take a few just to be safe. Very good. Awesome. Love that. Very good. Perfect. Nicely done. All right, so what I wanted to do for this part of the class is I actually wanted to ask Brianna some questions because obviously we've been talking about portrait psychology from the point of view of the photographer, but what I wanted to do is to kind of ask you some questions about your interaction with photographers and the things that you would like to see and the things that kind of take you out of the photo shoot and maybe put you in a place where you may not be as comfortable to be able to give the best expressions to help us get great photos. So what I would love to know, what I would love to hear is what are 3 things that, we're going to talk about do's and don'ts basically, so what are 3 things that you would like to see, generally speaking, from photographers that kind of put you a little bit more at ease? And what are 3 things that you don't want to see that basically put you in a situation where maybe you're uncomfortable, that you can't give your best expressions, that you can't give your best poses? Because I have my ideas, but I would love to hear from like your point of view, being that you're in front of the camera. So what are some do's that you would like to see from photographers?
I mean, I prefer when you already know what you want to do, know your location, know the setting, know if you have a certain aesthetic you have in mind, let that be known. Makeup I feel like is important, obviously, because I'm also a makeup artist, so I guess I'm a little bit biased when it comes to that. But you know, if you want the sweet innocent girl vibe, then let that be known, because I could show up with black eyeliner and that's totally the opposite vibe.
Right,
like,
right.
No, like have a mood board ready, maybe. That's one thing. Another thing I would say is like communication is huge. Which kind of ties into that, but also during shooting, kind of like how you guide, okay, I want you to look this way, you're doing fine, I'm just fixing the light here, like just be very vocal about things, because being silent, I guess that ties into the don'ts, but being silent, it's not very like comforting. Yeah. So being vocal definitely helps. Yeah, and then the third thing I would say is like just basic professionalism. Don't be too comfortable, especially if it's the first time meeting, you know, just very introductory, you know, to like, you know, touchy and hugging, things like that, and nicknames and little teasing here and there. It's, especially if it's your first time, it's not exactly appropriate. Right. So I just feel like just having basic, you know, kind of common sense professionalism is a good thing to have.
Those are all like great examples. So those are the things that you would like to see. What are the things that you don't want to see? Like, what are the things that for you are kind of like, they just take you out of the photo shoot and they just put you in a situation to where maybe you're not as comfortable to kind of give your best?
I don't like, I mean, it kind of all ties into the do's, like pretty much the polar opposites. When you show up to a shoot and they don't really know what they want and they kind of ask you, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking, you know, for model input, but you should kind of have an idea already of what you want, because there's been instances you show up to the shoot and it's like, well, where do you think we should shoot this? And it's like, I'm not sure. I don't really have an eye for that.
That's your job.
No. Okay, well, what outfits did you bring? Well, we didn't have anything really discussed, so I have this and this. I'm not really feeling that. I could have brought something else, like I don't know. So yeah, that is a no for me. Second thing would be kind of like what I mentioned earlier, just being like completely silent during shooting, because that can be, at least for me, a little bit off-putting, because you start to second guess yourself, and if you're giving them what they want, because you know most photographers kind of have a vision in mind of that one shot that they want. So you're doing all these poses, but everything, if you're just like, okay, turn this way, and it's like, did you like that one, or are we good, or do you want me to change expression? I can give you, you know, sad girl, I can give you fierce, I can give you smiling, like which one do you want? Like just kind of express that. And then the biggest thing would be personal space. Don't put hands on anybody, you know, at least the bare minimum would be to ask permission, but you know, there might be things you notice that we don't feel. So if there's a stray hair in the face, or a strap is showing or something like that, tuck it in. it would be nice to just kind of like say, hey, but there's a hair around here, can you fix that? Or, you know, maybe ask permission, but it's preferred if we just do it ourselves.
Right.
So just kind of, oh, there's a stray hair there, do you think you could fix that? Like, oh yeah, no problem. I don't see how anyone would have a problem with fixing that. Don't be handsy, don't be too forward with your being vocal, like, you know, oh my god, you look so hot, you look great, like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, like, but you know that already. That's a bit uncomfortable, and I feel like that'll start to show in photos too.
Sure.
And I think it's important that like all of those things are taken into consideration at the same time, because say you're thinking about, okay, yeah, I need to be vocal, but you forget that you shouldn't put your hands on the model, so you come and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna fix this for you. And then you're talking and you're like, oh, you're doing great. At that point, because you touched me, I'm kind of uncomfortable. So now your additional compliments are extra unsettling.
Right.
So just like, I feel like everything in conjunction is like really important to think about at the same time.
Very, very good. And I would even say from my point of view as a photographer, giving advice to you guys that are out there as photographers, I would tell you that it would even be advisable not to even ask for permission at all. If there's a situation where, you know, there's a stray hair, clothing, whatever it might be, you know, point it out to them, let them go, you know, maybe have a full-size mirror wherever it is that you're shooting, or maybe have an assistant or have them bring somebody that can help them to kind of fix these things, because oftentimes what I see that happens is that there are some people that are very shy, you know, and you might ask for permission, hey, is it okay if I fix your hair, or whatever the case might be. Maybe they're too shy to say no, you know, but they still might be uncomfortable. And, you know, if they are, and they say it's fine, and then they get into this uncomfortable situation, it's going to show up in the pictures. You're going to see like, oh man, they're not comfortable. The pictures aren't turning out right. Why? Well, again, it goes back to portrait psychology. If they don't feel comfortable because you made them feel a certain type of way, then it's going to ruin the photo shoot. So those are all great tips. Thanks for sharing that point of view. And hopefully this class was helpful for you guys. You know, really this is something that for myself, like I've been doing it for a little while, and a lot of it is very much automatic these days. But I watch photographers and I coach photographers who really kind of struggle with the psychological aspect of photography and of doing this type of thing. So hopefully you guys found this class helpful, and we'll open it up for questions on the live stream.